you.
Good morning, everybody. This is Hillary Ritt. I am the Workforce and Adult Services Consultant with the Kentucky Department for Libraries and Archives. And I'm pleased to welcome you to today's session, today's webinar called KYSTATS, Students' Right to Know and Family Resource Simulator. Today's session is presented by Jessica Fletcher. She is the Marketing Analytics Director at KYSTATS, or Kentucky Center for Statistics, as its full name is. Want to let you know that this presentation was made available by the Institute for Museum and Library Services. So want to thank them for allowing the funds for this, and want to thank Jessica for being here and our captioner Kim for being here. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Kim. I'm sorry, Jessica. I've had Kim in my mind. I'm sorry, Jessica. Jessica Fletcher.
That's okay. Hearing a little bit of
Jessica, are you there? Okay.
I'm here.
Folks, Jessica, it seems like Jessica's having a little bit of trouble with her audio. Jessica, I don't know if you can see the settings gear, but if you click on that, there is an option to set up your sound. I'm looking at my troubleshooting here just a second. But if you go to that settings and then the option to video and microphone settings, that may help. I know you're calling in on your phone though. If you need to leave and call back, that's okay too. Yeah, audio and video settings.
Jessica again.
Okay. You hear?
Yeah, well, I reconnected with my phone. I've been trying to get my headset to work, and I still can't get it to connect. So
Okay.
we will just keep powering through and hope it doesn't drop off again.
Okay.
Okay. So as Hillary mentioned, my name is Jessica Fletcher. I work for the Kentucky Center of Statistics, which was formed by legislative statute in 2013. And we are a state agency responsible for gathering data related to education and workforce outcomes. However, we also have other data, including information from the Cabinet for Health and Family Services. Can you hear me?
We can now.
Okay, I am.
But we can't hear you now, so I don't know if you've dropped it off again.
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, so if you can hear me, like I was saying, my name is Jessica Fletcher. with the Kentucky Center for Statistics. We are a state agency that was created in 2013 by statute to collect education and workforce information and share it with the Commonwealth of Kentucky. We also, since 2013, have started collecting other data from state agencies like the Department of Corrections, from the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, and we also are the entity that works with the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics to pull in unemployment rates and other employment data from the state of Kentucky. So this chart kind of shows where all of our data flows from. And as you'll see in a few minutes, we're able to use this data in innovative ways to help Kentuckians better understand the education and workforce landscape and how to navigate it. So we will first get started with our presentation of the Students' Right to Know dashboard. This dashboard was created as a way to help Kentucky students better understand their post-secondary choices when it comes to choosing their colleges and career pathways after high school. So you can access this dashboard by going to kystudentRightToKnow.ky.gov. You can also scan this QR code on the screen to get to the dashboard, but I'm about to kind of show you how that looks and how you can use it to advise students, whether they be graduates from Kentucky's high schools, or if they're non-traditional students considering going back to college or learning a trade, they can all access this publicly available platform to understand what their choices are and how those outcomes might affect their income in the long term. So first, just a little background on the Students' Right to Know Act, which was enacted by the Kentucky General Assembly in 2020. The legislation required that a dashboard display data that displays cost of college by public post-secondary institution, that it shows jobs and how they are linked to college majors, that it show how those college majors are paid for and how debt is accrued, and finally how the graduation rates for colleges and universities and specific majors look. And this is all to help students make more informed decisions about what they're planning to pursue. It also includes some information on career and technical education and apprenticeships. So it will show what outcomes are for students who take the career and technical education or apprenticeship route. So how we created this dashboard was by working with all of Kentucky's state-funded public post-secondary institutions, including Eastern Kentucky University, Murray State, and the Kentucky Community Technical and College System. We compiled all of that data and pulled together what the majors look like for each of those schools. So with that, you will see this dashboard. If you go to kystudentsrighttoknow.ky.gov, we'll get a page that looks a little bit like this. And how you navigate this is simply to choose the major that you are most interested in pursuing. So this second drop down here, if you were to choose social work as an example, this is what the output would look like on the dashboard. So somebody who is interested in majoring in social work could expect to see about 767 projected annual openings for jobs in that career field. And they would also be expected to have an early career salary of 35,000 and a late career salary of 48,000. There are obviously different career choices that one can make when they have received a social work degree. So these other listings under occupation kind of show some of those different job titles that someone with a social work degree may have. The second part of the screen shows which public institutions offer the selected major, and it looks like almost all of Kentucky's public post-secondary institutions do offer social work. So depending on what major you choose, you might see one university selected where the 9 universities are shown over here, or you might see 9. It just kind of depends on the popularity of the major, what the projected annual openings are. So if there is a high demand, it's more likely to have lots of support by universities. If you kind of scroll down the page, you will see some more information about the cost of attendance. So a student who wants to major in social work is likely to pay about $30,000 per year for tuition, and will have financial aid in that ballpark as well. You'll see that a social work student has a graduation rate of about 68%, and only about 4% of those graduates default on their loans. If you click on or scroll on down, if you're on the dashboard, you will then see some more in-depth loan information, as well as what I was mentioning earlier is information on additional pathways for career and technical education. Um, these pathways actually aren't social work like I had selected, but we did want to be able to provide information about what the post-graduation outcomes are for anyone who chooses the career and technical education field. So as you can see, there are about 44,000 graduates each year, and there are about 14,000 annual completers for this pathway. Um, that is really, in a nutshell, what the Students' Right to Know is. And because it is fairly simple to kind of navigate the dashboard, we do kind of give some pointers about how, like, a career counselor or a librarian who might be working with somebody who is interested in pursuing a college education, is to ask the following questions. So, what are your areas of interest? What schools offer that degree or credential? So, if the students don't know the answers to that program, this tool may be something that they can use to find those answers and do a little research about where they might want to apply and enroll.
Jessica, I've got a question actually too about
We
that, if it's
also
okay.
provide other tools that will help Kentuckians better understand the occupational outlook for different occupations. So this tool we wanted to share kind of falls in line with what some of the Students' Right to Know dashboard provides. So the occupational outlook is a dashboard that shows long-term occupational projections for Kentucky's 10 local workforce areas. So we're able to kind of use our labor market information to paint a better picture of what um, Kentucky jobs will look like in the future. So 7 years from now, there's still going to be lots of job openings and lots of different um, ways that people can engage in the workforce. So just using some of these tools can help Kentuckians take a better look at the workforce and make more informed choices. Um, so now, with that being said, I want to kind of switch gears and talk a little bit about our Family Resource Simulator. So this is a new and very different tool from what I just showed you. So the Family Resource Simulator illustrates the impact of public assistance benefits on the budget of a hypothetical family, and it can help identify where cliff effects occur as income increases. The reason this is important is a lot of times as a individual kind of works through their career and starts making more money, they might start to see a loss of benefits such as Medicaid or child care assistance, for example. So we created this simulation along with the National Center for Children in Poverty to help individuals and organizations better understand benefit cliffs. So we were able to kind of take lots of data from various public benefit programs and compile a dashboard or a simulator, actually not a dashboard, that can help show over a long term what and where those benefit cliffs occur and when a family would be self-sustainable, meaning not relying on any sort of public benefits. So in order to get this calculation for a simulated scenario, we ask that an individual enter the following information. So it's important that they share their county of origin. And this is because different counties often have different median income levels. So depending on where you live, your median income and your benefit cliffs are going to look different depending on where you live in Kentucky. So the first screen that you see when you visit the Family Resource Simulator is just going to ask for the county that you live in. So once you enter that, you will see a screen that looks like this. This is where you will input things like how many adults are in your household and how many children are in your household and what their ages are. Entering that helps the simulator to understand what childcare needs you have, what food needs you have, and as you'll see in a few minutes, we'll enter a little bit more information about some of those monthly costs that accrue. So for household incomes, the person entering the scenario would also include if they breastfeed any infant children, if anyone in the household has a disability, and what the parents working in the home, whether they work full-time or part-time schedules. Next, you will enter what your hourly rate is at the job that a hypothetical family would enter. So whether that is a full-time job or a part-time job can be entered here. Next, the asset and debt is an important thing for the simulator to also take into consideration because a lot of times if a family has a certain amount of money in their savings account, sometimes that can also affect public benefits as well. So once that is entered, you will then come to a screen where you'll enter your regular monthly expenses such as rent and utilities and food and transportation. Finally, you will select which benefits that the family receives. The simulator automatically defaults to yes on most of these questions and will take into consideration anything that you change if you do change from the default settings. Finally, the childcare piece is important to understand if a family has any specific childcare needs and how much money per month that they spend on childcare. And then finally, the healthcare piece for both parents and children is included. So this question actually asked if a parent has Medicaid, if they lose Medicaid benefits, would they then go on private insurance through their employer or individual non-group insurance? So once this question is answered, the simulator will calculate all of the results. And so this is sort of what a simulation looks like on the front end. So if you entered that a family in Pendleton County with 2 parents and 2 children, ages 10 and 14, had a income of $33,000 per year, and then the following expenses, this is kind of what their benefit cliffs would look like. So as you can see, this family could experience 3 benefit cliffs as their pay increases over time. So the reason we say could is this is a simulation, and the tool is not meant to be an eligibility determiner. It will simply tell you what could happen if a family were to receive a pay increase. And it's best to rely solely on the public benefit agency, such as Medicaid, to determine that eligibility, and not use this tool as a way to determine whether or not you would receive benefits. So we like to make that clear for people to understand that just because a simulation that you run through the Family Resource Simulator has an output like this, it's still best to talk to the agency that you're trying to receive benefits from to figure out if this is whether that is a reality situation or not. One of the things that the simulator also provides is a download of a spreadsheet that looks something like this. This will kind of break down visually where those different benefits cliffs occur and what specific benefits are impacted at which income levels. Finally, this is just a little bit more of an in-depth look at the Pendleton scenario that we talked about. The family that we sort of created for this scenario could lose benefits or SNAP benefits specifically when they reach $38,000 per year. So if the family who was starting out at $33,000 received a $5,000 per year raise, their SNAP benefits could be lost. But once again, I would reiterate to definitely check with SNAP or with Medicaid, whichever benefit that you're looking at, to see definitively which benefits would be impacted. Um, Finally, I would refer anybody back to the Occupation Outlook who might be looking to change their occupation in order to make a better living. Using either the Occupational Outlook tool or the Students' Right to Know can kind of help people understand like what some other occupations are and what they pay, and help them kind of better plan for their future. So that is our 2 dashboards or simulations that we wanted to share today. Once again, I'm Jessica Fletcher, the Marketing Analytics Director at the Kentucky Center for Statistics, and you can reach me at jfletcher@ky.gov if you have any questions about either of these 2, or if you would like to take a closer look at KYSTATS as an organization. As I mentioned, we have lots of different reports about the public education system in Kentucky, about our post-secondary work and our workforce. So if you're interested in looking at any of our reports and want to ask any questions, I encourage you to reach out to me. So thank you for your time today, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I have a couple of questions if that's okay. So if a library staff was to show this to...
Okay, Hillary, I can't hear you, so I am relying on the closed captions to kind of see what you're saying. I don't know why I can't hear you, but I'm still having issues on my end.
Okay. So if a library staff was to, and I don't know how this would necessarily come up in conversation, but if a library staff was to share this, or a customer was to come from having visited with someone at the Career Center and goes to the site, would there be any sort of liability? I think what you had said about this is not an exact, it's a simulation, so refer back to the SNAP office or Cabinet for Health and Family Services or Department of Community-Based Services, those kinds of things. Would that be an appropriate kind of, this is just a tool, but this is not an exact exact information. Still, would that be an appropriate kind of thing for a library staff to say to a person if they're working with them?
Yes. So I do think it would be very important for them to clarify that it is not a definitive answer, that it is clearly meant as a simulation to provide um, some information on where their benefits could be affected, but to always defer to the agency that provides those benefits, such as the Department of Medicaid, um, to clarify where they would actually be affected. And one other thing to remember is sometimes the effect of a pay increase doesn't immediately affect benefits. So there could be like a 6-month grace period, so there's not an immediate impact once your income increases. But those are all questions that a person, once they look at the simulator, should then go back to the Department of Medicaid or their any provider that they use and ask those questions specifically about when those actual benefits would be impacted.
Thank you. I have one other question. So you mentioned people entering, so they're entering their income and the number of children and what types of benefits they are getting. Is there a concern for privacy? And I think you and I have already talked about this, but just to clarify for library staff, what kind of data, is there any kind of data collection that is being done with the simulator outside of the simulation?
So that's a great question. We actually aren't collecting data. So when a person enters their information, it is not for us to collect data, but it is simply for the the calculator to be able to determine where those cliffs are. So once a person enters that information, and to be clear, they're not entering any personal information such as birth dates or social security numbers. They're simply entering enough information that would tell the calculator how where those benefit cliffs will occur. So I would say that there is no risk of any kind of data breach because we're not actually saving the information after it's entered. It's simply used in order to make this calculation.
Thank you. As you talked about the students' right to know, I was reminded of the Kentucky Higher Education Assistance Authority and the resources that they provide, the outreach that they provide. And I could see there being a possible program connected with Students' Right to Know, the dashboard, and Kentucky Higher Education Assistance Authority. Would that be something, I mean, are you able to do presentations or outreach related to the students' right to know for individual libraries, either virtually or in person?
Yes. So actually, the Kentucky Higher Education Assistance Authority is a member of the Kentucky Center for Statistics Board of Directors. So their executive director is one of our board members. So we actually do a lot of work with KIA and the financial aid information that is, provided via students throughout the state. So we do work closely with them, and if there was ever a time for us to sort of collaborate in a webinar like this, we would be glad to sort of provide information and work together with KIA to do that.
Thank you. I think those were my questions. So I want to again thank Jessica for being here and presenting on both of these resources, and there are many other resources available from the Kentucky Center for Statistics. Work Ready Communities, they have information on their site about unemployment. So please want to recommend checking out their main website, which I'll drop in the chat, or I think it's already in the chat that I've dropped in there. But do want to encourage folks to go there, to reach out to Jessica if you have any questions. I will put my information in the chat as well if you need to check in with me about something, I will be able to connect you with Jessica. I also want to put a survey link in the chat so that you all can provide feedback about this webinar. And Jessica, I'm going to stop sharing your slides, and I'm going to thank the Institute for the Museum and Library Services again for providing the resources for this webinar. So I'm going to put their slide up here. Just very appreciative of the resources that they provide to KDLA so that we can provide webinars like this. I want to thank you all, my captioner Kim, my colleague Kim Usri, and Jessica Fletcher again for presenting this webinar, and want to thank you all for the webinar today. So if you do have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to Jessica Fletcher or to me, Hillary Ritt. And thank you all again, and I hope you have a good day.